I had to stop at the truck stop and use their restroom. And when I came out, there was a van parked beside my vehicle. Not parallel to my vehicle, but diagonal to my vehicle. And so I'm like, what the fuck? And so I go around to the back because I had my back window opened a little bit for my dogs. And there's this Indian woman dressed in the garb, if you will. And she's standing outside the van and she's lays down a large, about the size of her body, so like maybe a 5x5 piece of blue cloth next to the nearest water, which happens to be just like a huge mud puddle, okay? And I just sit there and I go, I can't believe they still do that. So she's standing on the blue cloth and she's praying, okay? So the origin of that is the praying for forgiveness for water. Because that shit dates back a long fucking time. That ritual right there. Where people just have the need at any point in time to lay down a blue cloth next to a section of water, regardless if it's a cup of water, a puddle of water, a pool of water, or a lake filled with water. That's like an old I don't even want to call it a ritual. They say something stirs them to do that. Anyways, that shit dates back a long time. If I recall correctly, it is more about forgiving because they took things off this land and handed it all over to the church, and that's how the church got so big and prominent. And what they took and how they used it the wrong way, and the lies they told along the way, really does no justice for what they did, okay? And so the original meaning of that blue cloth next to water is to forgive, asking for forgiveness from Hiawatha for what they did, because they took his father's things off this land and they handed it over to the church. And if he stood right before me or anybody else that knows that stuff and says, are you, everything he would say, you got to read the code first, but he'd say something like this: are you willing to forgive my father's people for what they did? My answer would be no. Are you willing to forgive my father? Well, for what he did. Well, he restored life from the dead. And once they came back up, they became warriors once again. So, it is what it is. You can't change the passages of time. You can't correct the history when it goes this far into the future where no one else corrects things or makes the proper corrections so that it doesn't harm other people in the future.